I know it sounds corny, but I feel joyful every day. Despite what's going on in the world, I do find little things to be joyful, whether it's conversations with girlfriends that I've known since elementary school. As a Buddhist, I work really hard to find joy even in the sufferings that's happening in the world and in life, is that there's still something to be grateful for. I always write down in my gratitude journal every day something I'm grateful for. Don't get me wrong, I'm not like a Pollyanna. Doesn't mean I don't have sad moments, okay? I want you to think I'm like that. But I know it's a choice. Choosing hope is a choice, right? Choosing to smile is a choice. I don't think there was a aha moment where I knew. It just kind of like evolved, and I never was really that excited to have a child. But I didn't consciously just wake up and say, I do not want to have kids. I think a couple of things. Number one, I'm an only child in an era in which only children were not that popular. So I think I was already accustomed to somewhat being solitary and being a little bit different, because everybody in the neighborhood at least had 2 kids. Most of the time it was like 4 kids. And I always realized that there's different ways to have a lifestyle and be happy. The same thing, even though I grew up in Los Angeles, my mother was from the South, Tennessee, and she would always send me back to visit my family in the summertime. Also gave me an opportunity to see different lifestyles. So I think early on, it just let me more open to the idea that you can make different choices. So there's not any kind of one way of being. And of course, Los Angeles was very much a counterculture kind of city anyway, very liberal minded. So I think that just always just gave me the freedom to think different, both in terms of what later on became my career path. I'm doing something very different, as well as my lifestyle. And I think what was really special about the time I came along is the women had the birth control pill. I came of age like in the 70s and 80s, where we didn't have that freedom before. So many times you just had a baby just because you didn't necessarily want to, but just because you got pregnant, and some of the other choices really weren't available to you. So the fact that we could then choose our reproductive rights, which the fact that they're being attacked right now is a whole different conversation. But it gave me a freedom, because I think I could have possibly had an accidental baby, put it that way, had we not had birth control. So that gave me, once again, freedom. I love the idea of freedom to make certain choices. And then as I was dating, I knew that I didn't want to consciously be a single mom. I still kind of thought I might want to have a baby just because that's what you do. Not that I had a burning desire for it, but I think more kind of peer pressure and things like that. But I never really had found a partner that I really felt compatible enough with to want to have a child with. And when I did get married later in life, my husband also was very ambivalent about having children. So we just decided, why? And when we started asking why versus just doing it, we realized it really wasn't what we wanted. And I love being, even though I'm an only child, I'm auntie to many of my close friends. I've always loved the idea of being an auntie or godmother. There was a famous quote recently by the actress Tracy Lee Ross, and she was saying, you don't have to push out a baby in order to contribute to society, in order to express your creativity. I love that so much. And I think sometimes we just kind of underplay the role of what an independent single woman or childless woman can do. Because certainly when I was married, we were together for 12 years, and there was always people asking, are you going to have children? Because we got married a little later in life, I don't think we have the questions as often as we had got married in our 20s. But there's always that kind of question that if you're successful and financially independent, but of course you should have kids. And we're like, but why?
Yeah, people love to question you, especially once you get married. It's like apparently the next step. So it's, of course you're going to have kids, right? And it shouldn't be just an assumption. It should be actually up to each person. I mean, how did your family then around you react to not wanting to have kids or having kids? Did you feel any kind of pressure,
No.
judgment?
Fortunately, because my mother was the oldest daughter out of 6 kids, and they were always very stair-stepped, she was pretty pressured into being a mother early. Like at 8 years old, she was mothering her younger kids, her younger siblings. And she always had impressed upon me that having children is a big responsibility. Sometimes she made it even feel like almost a burden, I would say. And she made it very clear to me that it's not just about happiness and having a baby is no way to quote unquote keep a relationship together. So I
Hmm.
think early on I had some of the realities of what it's like to have a kid. So she was fine that if I did not want to have a kid, she wasn't had this burning desire to be a grandmother because she'd
Right.
raised her siblings. She was an elementary school teacher. So she was around the kids a lot. So that helped that I didn't have that pressure for her. Same thing with
Mm.
my dad. He was very responsible of the siblings in his family. And so they really, I think, wanted me to have more freedom and not have to be, I'd hate to say the word burden, but not to have that responsibility of taking care of someone else versus giving me the chance to travel, to try
Mm.
different kind of choices, just to have the flexibility to do what I want without having to be responsible for someone else. And I know some people think,
Yeah.
God, that sounds so selfish. But to me, it feels like people
Nope.
sometimes want to have that freedom while still having a kid. And
Right.
sometimes that's even more selfish. It's like
Hmm.
you can't really do that. There's someone else you should care about. So I knew up front that I love
Yeah.
the idea of being able to come and go and not having something that I was going to be responsible for the rest of my life.
And especially, like you said, when the pill came in, it really it gave women this autonomy over their lives and their bodies, and your mother didn't have that. So it really shows the contrast of what she didn't have a choice, and
As well
you
as my
finally got the choice.
as well as my grandparents. I think if you talk
Right.
about kind of generational trauma, I think I realized that both my maternal and paternal grandparents had kids and they couldn't necessarily afford to have them. You know,
Right.
my father's mother was widowed very early. My dad was only like 4 years old. So there she was, a Black woman in the
Mm.
South with no education, widowed with 4 kids. That
Wow.
during the Depression, that could not have been
Wow.
easy. My
No.
mother's mother, she had a total of 8 kids, two died at childbirth, living on a farm in Tennessee. And like I said, there were stair steps. And she had some health problems, no doubt, I think, because she had so many kids close together.
Mm.
So I think on
Hmm.
some level, on a DNA level, I got that, wow, my grandmothers didn't have the opportunities because they were saddled with children. And I
Right.
think, well, of course, they love their kids. I think if they'd had the choice to not have as many or to space them out, life could have been different. And I
Yeah.
had the opportunity to choose different.
Yeah. And you went for it full force, right? Tell
Helping
me.
helping to live for both of them, right? What they weren't able
Yeah.
to do, I'm able to do. Yes. I've traveled all over the world. I'm currently an entrepreneur. There's a program called the Big Sister program where you're a mentor to a troubled
Mm.
teen. And I took that on very seriously. Because once again, I figured there's ways that you can contribute. Because then I can give myself 100% and then I
Right.
can step away. I think if I had
Hmm.
to be 100% day in and day out, I could not be my best.
Mm.
I'm much better doing nice, short, like a sprinter, really short, intense burst, and
Yes.
then I
Hmm.
step away. I'm not the marathoner.
Me neither. Me neither. No, but that's it. When you don't have full time, your life taking up with looking after kids, you can dedicate the energy and the time and the love that you have when you can, and it can
Exactly.
be received so well. That's the contribution that I think child-free and
Absolutely.
childless
Right.
women can bring into the world if they want
Absolutely.
to. We
And I
can
was able to help her
do it.
out financially as well too, because I
Right.
could expose her to kind of like the fun things where her mother was just trying to do the day-to-day survival stuff. I could be, oh,
Yeah.
let's go to a play or let's go out to
Mm.
dinner here or let's expose you to those kind of things. And that's what I
Yes.
enjoy doing. It. So I still feel like I got that part of me fulfilled.
Yes.
And when I see some of my friends now, because I'm fortunate that I have a large enough group of friends who are also child free, as well
Right.
as those who have kids. I think it would be a little bit hard if I was like the only one in my group. But there's
Mm-hmm.
several people who've made that choice. Sometimes consciously, sometimes not, maybe because they were infertile and didn't want to go through the levels. But everyone is very content in their choice. Let me put it that way.
Mm.
By contrast, some of the women I know who have children, I won't say they're quite as content in their choice. If the children didn't live up to the expectations that they've had, because maybe they had mental health challenges, sometimes they just haven't been able to, find a job. They're still living with their parents later in life,
Right.
or they got into some sort of trouble with drugs or financial problems. And I'm thinking, no, nobody has a kid thinking that's going to happen, but that is the
Yes.
risk that you take. And I would say I have more friends who have had children that I don't want to say they don't like their kids, maybe kind of regret their choice, where none of my friends who are child free regret their choice.
Interesting. I mean, this is, what I'm hearing every time I'm speaking to folks who are older, and society loves to use fear and regret as a weapon, right? And you're going to regret it. You're going to change your mind and wish you'd
Right.
had kids. That's not what I hear from the folks in our community. Has
Yeah.
anyone ever told you things like that?
Oh, of course, especially like the favorite is who's going to take care of you when you get older, as if
Right.
having children is a guarantee that that's going to happen. Now, I have to admit,
Ridiculous.
as I'm caring for my dad at 96, I do wonder about that because
Right.
the level of care I'm going to give him, I would not ask for anybody else who's not a relative.
Right.
And number one, first of all, as we know, being married is no guarantee that someone's going to be there to take care of you because
Nope.
my mom could not take care of my dad the way I am because she was older. So you definitely need somebody younger in your life. But I have plenty of people whose children aren't there to support them. So I think we do have to start looking at alternative ways as we age. What is that going to look like? That's probably the only thing that I say I have regret, but I'm concerned about because I know having a child is no guarantee that they're going to be there to take care of me. I have plenty of people that I've seen with multiple kids and the kids aren't there or they're kind of half-assed about it or or they're doing it out of obligation and not out of love. So that's the only thing that I think about, not any other thing about, oh, I'm going to regret my choice. No.
Yeah.
Not,
I mean, that kind of, that idea that we're going to be alone when we're older, ultimately, we all have to take responsibility for that. Whether we have kids or we don't, we have to decide, okay, then I need to build that community or
yes.
I need to think about this.
Long-term care insurance, something or other, yes. Kids are not a guarantee of that. And I think society makes it feel like that. And as you were saying, the pressure that society does, also like for women who chose to have a child and not being married, then they're shamed as well. Oh, how could you get married and how could you have a child and have a husband? The other people, if we do get married and we don't have a kid, oh, what's wrong with you? You're married, you don't have kids. So it's like society is always trying to make you feel like what you're doing is the wrong choice. You have too many kids, and then people are thinking, oh, like I was an only child. And my parents could have afforded to have another child, but my mother had fibroids at a time in which they just would do a hysterectomy. So it was very painful for people to always assume that something was wrong with her or why did she choose not to have another child. It's almost like you can't win. Too many.
Oh, we'll never be able to win.
Either too many kids, not enough kids. Had the wrong time. I had one friend. She had her child in her 40s, and she was shamed for like waiting so late because many times people would assume that she was the grandmother of the daughter, and she wanted to wait until she was financially sound, had a house, had traveled, so that the taking care of her kid was nothing she was going to resent. But people shamed her for not having her kid in her 20s.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Figure, right?
You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. And I think that's why now I'm in my 40s and I realize I just need to do whatever I want. Stop caring about what everyone else thinks. Stop caring what society wants, because whatever you do, especially as a woman, you're going to be judged. So live your best life and put the blinkers on and ignore everyone else. And clearly you embody that, Judy, because you are just living the life that you want, which is incredibly inspiring.
And I think that certainly gets easier as you get older. I can't say that in my late 30s, when you start getting toward that time in which you can't have kids, that you do think about it just because the pressure puts on it. But I think combination of having parents who weren't pressuring me to have kids, having a strong spiritual foundation allowed me to really hear what my inner voice is telling me versus being carried away by society pressure.
You're a Buddhist, is that right? For a long time?
A long time, almost 40 years now.
Wow. So I would love to know what got you into Buddhism.
Oh, that's a whole other discussion on that one.
Oh, really?
Yes. Yeah, that's a whole different thing. But I just think everyone needs to find whatever spiritual path works for them. And while I was raised in a sort of traditional Christian role, it just didn't work for me. Some of the doctrine didn't work for me, but it did give me a sense of having a strong spiritual foundation that I could tap into on a regular basis. So there were components that I took from that. I just chose to express it differently. And to me, I guess it's no different than choosing not to have children, right? There's a component that I love about being able to give to others, being able to share my knowledge, being able to be, very expressive, but I don't have to do it in the traditional way of family structure. They both fed into each other.
So is there anything particularly about Buddhism that drew you in, that you really loved about this?
Well, I did love that they're not a whole list of thou shalt nots. And I also love that it starts with the premise that everyone is like the Buddha inside, pure, and that you're just continuing to bring out that pureness by continuing to self-reflect on yourself. Where I think sometimes with other doctrines, it's always like, you're a sinner, you're wrong, you're bad, and you won't be able to see any real benefit until your afterlife. Buddhism is also making the best of yourself now to really be able
Right.
to see in this current moment. And that really spoke with me a lot. And I don't really want to put anybody else's faith down because I realize faith is a very personal thing. But this has been the choice that I've made. And quite frankly, I've been a better Christian as a Buddhist.
Interesting. I mean, it makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah,
you know, when you think about the way that Christianity, it's another kind of maybe way of controlling people through fear. You know, there's a lot of rules, and if you don't follow the rules, you're
you're
damned.
bad.
And
Yeah.
yeah, you're a bad person. And a lot of those rules, it's like, okay, who created a lot of these rules? Is
Exactly.
it,
I mean, we all
you
know the
know?
basic rules about maybe not killing somebody, but some of the other rules, I don't know. But let's
Yeah.
not get into spirituality because we really want to, because that'll take someone on a different level. We want to just talk about
True.
people
That's
who made a
true.
decision to be child. And I love that you say child free because childless always feels like less than, right? Like
That's
somebody is
it.
more if you're less.
That's
Child
it.
free is just like I'm free of having children.
That's it. I mean, you know, obviously there's lots of ways that people want to identify, and we don't prescribe any way. For me, because I made this choice myself, it makes sense that I don't feel like I'm lacking anything, that I'm missing something. So child
Right.
free works for me. And in our community, we have people who they wanted children, but it just didn't happen for them. And maybe childless works for them. But the great thing is we get to decide what word suits our journey and what we feel the best. And for me, absolutely. And for yourself as well. It's child free. And I mean, it's almost annoying that we have to have a word which has child inside of it, but that's the language.
Right. Right.
That's what we've got right now.
Right.
And it's, yeah.
But back when you said women who choose to have children, suppose they decide to go through IV or a
Right.
surrogate. Many times they're shamed for like, oh,
Oh
how
yeah.
come you didn't have the baby on your
Oh
own? You
yeah.
had someone else have the baby. It's like once again, why we have all of these judgments, for lack of a better word, about people's personal choice. If
Right.
it doesn't impact you, why do you care whether I have to go through if I'm wanting, especially if I'm paying for it for myself, if I go through in
Yep.
vitro, why are you upset about that? If I pay for someone else to happen, why does that bother you so much? I think we should be
Right.
more concerned about the children who are here and no one's looking after them, the children who are like foster children. And
So,
people are more concerned about stray animals than they are about stray kids or homeless
right.
people. And I think sometimes our values are just so screwed up and we spend so much time shaming people for their choice about having a kid and less
Yeah.
supporting the kids who are here. Maybe their parents died or can't afford or something like that. And they're just kind of left, because my
Yes.
husband was a foster child. So I'm very, very
Mm.
tuned in to really what that's like and how scary it is for someone to turn 18 and age out of the foster
Yeah.
system and there's no means of support. So
Mm.
once again, let's get back to there's all these kind of like little branches that kind of
Oh,
like spin off from
totally.
there. Yes.
And I mean, you mentoring and helping younger girls and women. I think this is a beautiful way to pass down the wisdom and your learnings from your life and try and help. This is how I hope that what I'm doing is also going to help younger people to realize that the world we live in, you're going to be judged no matter what. So choose what's right for you.
Right.
And having those role models is so important because when I was growing up, I didn't know anyone who was like you, who was, an entrepreneur, a woman who was living their life the way that they wanted to, didn't have kids. And if I'd had that in my life, I would have felt so much stronger about what I wanted and who I was, because I would have seen someone else in society and gone, okay, she's doing it. I can do it. And
And I
that's
don't have
wonderful.
and I don't have
Yeah.
cats. I don't have any cats. They always make it seem that,
Okay, yes.
older women who are not married, and especially they don't have kids, that they become
Right.
an old cat lady. And I like to
Yeah.
show them, there's different models. I love now there's the term rich auntie that sort of like
Oh,
has
yeah.
replaced old maid.
Yep.
Because remember, old maid was the term. I think, who came up with that? That's just another way of shaming a woman, right? But now the rich
Yeah.
auntie, the one who's fun, outgoing, loves to travel, can travel, contributes, very usually kind of on the creative side. It's
Yeah.
just living her life fully. And I'm thinking
Yes.
that's the role model we need to see. So we need the same thing.
Yes.
The rich auntie, we need that version of child free, an older woman who's
Totally.
child free. Because we don't mind seeing someone who's in their 20s and child free. But somehow when you
Right.
get past 40 and my age, close to 70, and you're child free, but all of a sudden the images change. It's like, oh, it becomes more of regret or more of, oh, you must be lonely or, oh,
Mm.
you're missing out on something. It's like, no. That's not
Oh
my
yeah.
experience, you know.
No. I mean, yeah, we see like political leaders, people in the media, they're the ones who are pushing out this narrative. We've had politicians in America who, was it JD Vance calling
Oh God.
childless cat ladies?
Yes,
And,
exactly.
when the people in power, the people who are controlling the laws, they're sharing these toxic negative thoughts with the wider world, of course, then normal people every day are going to think in their
Exactly.
heads, oh, childless people, they are a drain on our society. They,
Yes.
are selfish. All of these negative assumptions, which I
Yes.
know are just absolutely false. Does it
Truly.
does it frustrate you as
Totally.
much as it
No.
frustrates me?
Now Kamala Harris, who I voted for, is child free. Now
Yes.
she
Yeah.
does have stepchildren from her husband, but she is child free. And to me,
Right.
that's more of an example of a role model that I want to see. Very
Totally.
successful, got married late in life,
Mm.
obviously living her best life. I mean, she would probably live in a better life if she was president, but the
Right.
fact that, she's not sitting in a corner with her cats and crying, which is the
No.
image that JD Vance wants us to have about that, which
No.
I
No.
don't understand. It's just, once again, why we have to shame people for their choices. To me, it's no
Right.
different than 30 years ago if someone was gay, how they were shamed for being
Yeah.
gay. We've got to some level, I know they're trying to take us back, but just letting people live their life. If they're not killing somebody, they're
I
not
know.
being a drain on society. I
I
don't
know.
understand what the problem is.
I mean, yeah, I think because we do live in a pronatalist patriarchy that has a very narrow definition of what is the correct way to live. And that might be white, have children, heterosexual marriage, anything outside of that, we need to shame and say
Yes,
you're wrong and you need to
exactly.
change. And it's just sad that, like you mentioned that, especially in the US, that they're trying to roll back time. They're trying to get back to a time when women don't have jobs, they don't have the vote, they don't
Don't
have
have rights.
reproductive
Yes,
autonomy. Yeah. I
right.
mean, do you get scared about what the future is for younger women and younger people in general?
Yes, I do. But on the other hand, as a Black woman, or I feel like we've been constantly attacked and marginalized since we landed in the US, I'm
Yeah.
just tired right now, quite frankly. I feel like this is somebody else's battle to do at this particular point. And I know they may sound a little bit selfish, but I just feel like sometimes when someone else creates a mess, it's not up to me to come and repair that this time. I'm going to
No,
sit this one out.
absolutely. No, you've done enough. You've done enough just existing in a world which
Yes,
treats you differently. No,
yes,
you've done, it's
yeah,
not on you. It's actually on, for starters, white folks for
yeah,
sure to do that. They should be doing the legwork. They should be out
yeah.
protesting.
Yeah.
So no. And
It's like
I
setting boundaries. You have to know
yeah.
when it's your
Yeah.
turn to step in and out. Yeah, certainly there's some things that are pretty egregious that I'm going to speak up about. And sometimes I think just living as an independent woman is a way of also
Right.
speaking out. But am I
Yeah.
going to some of the marches and things like that right now? No. I'm in a position to make some financial contributions and I'll do that. But frontline stuff, that's just it's not my ministry right now.
No, and it doesn't have to be. I think
No.
it's people can get in their heads that they need to do all of these things. We all need to choose how can we help and support. And this, what I'm doing, this is what I can do. Some
Yes,
people may be
exactly.
able,
Pick your lane. Exactly.
yeah. So then, what do you think has been your biggest challenge that you faced as a woman who hasn't had children?
I think I had more pressure about not being married than about
Really?
having children. I don't
Mm,
know why that is. Maybe because that's a little bit more sensitive to me.
yeah.
Because I do want to get back into a relationship. I'm not sure if I want to be married. Married. I love the new living apart together, where you're committed to someone,
Yes.
you live in separate places. Once again, different kind of lifestyle choice. That
Yeah.
works for me. And I've been so busy recently with my business, and then I had some elderly parents. I hadn't really had a chance to really focus on dating. So I think I feel that more because that's closest to my
Mm,
heart.
I see.
And I got married later in life, and there was a lot of pressure because everyone was getting married around me. And then I think, wow, I haven't found that right one. I started questioning my own self. And then
Mm,
when you start working on yourself versus questioning yourself, you always end up finding what you want. And that's what the
mm,
shift was. And then I found my husband, and it worked for a while. Then it didn't work. And I think I felt a little shame about being divorced because my parents were married 68 years. My
mm,
grandparents were married 60 something years. To my other grandparents, she was widowed. And I think I always thought the model was you stay together forever and ever. That's another
right.
societal rule. And sometimes it just doesn't work.
That's
And
it.
it's okay. Sometimes a person's expiration period is just their expiration period. But I did feel more shame about being divorced, I'll say that, than I was about being
Really?
child free. Because that's something that I really wanted. I wanted it to
Right.
work. And when it didn't work, then there was some sense of disappointment and failure and questioning. So that's more of the issue, which is still part of that
Mm,
same genre of shaming people for their
yeah.
choices. Now, I'm not saying that divorce doesn't have its consequences. Had I had children, it might have been a whole lot harder. I've seen
Mm,
women who stay with somebody when they shouldn't have because they have children. They don't want a
right.
quote unquote broken, I hate that term broken home. I like to
I
say
know.
reconfigured home. They didn't want to have that, or it's
Yes.
more difficult financially to raise kids as a
Mm,
single parent. So people stay trapped because
yeah.
of those things. And I wasn't trapped, but I just knew it wasn't working. But that's where I think, like I said, more so than child free was the issue. But I was grateful that I didn't have children because it made it easier for me to make that choice.
Absolutely.
And
I
I was
mean,
so much
yeah.
happier after the divorce, even though I had all this anxiety before it happened. Once I finally pulled the trigger, I was like, oh my God, why didn't I do that sooner? Why was I staying there based on, fear? Because my husband and I had done our business together, and I was thinking, could I still manage the business without him? The business thrived once he
Oh,
left,
really?
quite frankly. Bless his heart, he's recently deceased. But, so many times we just get trapped, as you said, because of fear or what society
Yeah.
says you should and should not do versus what does your intuition tell you? My intuition had told me a
Right.
few years prior to divorce that I should have left. But I hemmed and hawed, hemmed and hawed. I didn't want to be in my 50s and single because you know what that sounds like, that
Mm,
stigma, and would I find someone else? But my husband and I had made a trip to Bali. And Bali is a place where I later heard after the fact, you get a lot of spiritual insights when you're there. And to me,
okay.
spiritual insight is always like, oh, something beautiful coming down from the sky. But it's also, it could be like you're clearly seeing the areas that are wrong in your life or need to be
Mm,
recalibrated. It was
hmm.
clear when we came back from Bali that we need to be divorced. I could not
Got you.
deny it before. Before I could kind
Right.
of pretend it away,
Mm,
wallpaper over the cracks. This time the cracks were so big, it's like, get out of this house because it is crumbling down.
yeah. But I love that this often happens when you finally do pull that band-aid off. It's like positive stuff can come your way because you kind of let go of this thing
Yes,
that possibly was dragging you down or was
totally was
making you
dragging me
feel
down.
like a weight, and
Yes,
you felt that kind of release of like, okay, now I
absolutely.
can end the business. Well, tell me more about the business, Judy. Then I would love to know more about that as well.
So I sell mannequins for a living. I guess you might say those are my children, right? I don't want to make it sound like I'm this crazy lady. Instead of cats, I have mannequins. But it is my business where our main focus is recycling mannequins that department stores are getting rid of because they're closing or
Right.
remodeling. Instead of them
Mm,
going to the landfill, we resell them. And a lot of our
that's
customers
so
are
cool.
artists or doing something creative with the mannequin. They're not
Hmm.
just for displaying clothes, they're for art projects, they're for decorations, they're for making furniture. So
Yeah.
that's once again where my creative vision comes out of. Now, I
Mm,
admire any person who can be a mother, a wife, and an entrepreneur. Those are hard to do those three things together. I remember reading
yeah.
something by the designer Diane von Furstenberg, and
Oh
she
yeah.
always said she felt that she could do two out of the three. She could not have done all
Mm,
three together. So when she divorced, her business continued to grow for a period of
hmm.
time, and she had her kids. She doesn't think she can do all three. So I admire people who can. I know that I probably couldn't have, and I was able to be an entrepreneur in a way that I could not have been a mother and an
Yeah.
entrepreneur.
I mean, I think looking at friends, family, I feel like that ratio, Diane, is kind of right. There is something about we're told we can have it all. It's like another thing society loves to tell
Yes.
women, oh, you can have it all. Yeah, you can have kids and the career. And I feel like, is that just another lie that they're telling us to make sure that we still continue to do the invisible labor at home? We still do most of the childcare. And we still need you to go out and work because we live in a time where we need two parents to actually work. We need that money because it's so
Yeah.
expensive now.
Yeah.
But when I see my friends who are living that life, I see women who are exhausted, like suffocating under that kind of a weight. And I really don't believe that you can have it all unless you're maybe a rich person, maybe. But even then, something has to be sacrificed, something has to give. And too often I see it's a lot of women sacrificing their
Yeah.
personal freedom, their
Yeah.
desires and passions.
And
Yeah,
it's tough because I know that if you're a mom, sometimes you want to have a creative outlet.
of
So you don't
course.
want to
Yeah.
always be a full time mom. But I wish that
No.
we maybe had more opportunities for people to work part time so they still get that
Mm,
stimulation of being around other adults or creating in a different area. But it is challenging to try to do all three at the same time.
yeah.
And some women can be quote unquote superwoman. And that's another kind of stereotype they put up there. Superwoman, you can do it all. I just knew that I couldn't. So once again,
Yeah.
my choice was this versus trying to
Yeah.
do it all and do it all terribly
Yes, exactly. That makes a lot of sense.
or with a lot of
Um,
resentment or anger or stuff like that. I want to be
right.
able to do the things out of joy. Not to say
Mm,
that there's always responsibilities, but it's totally different when you're doing it really from a place of joy and love versus like, oh, this was
mm,
a decision that I didn't really even think about.
absolutely. You mentioned joy. Where do you get your joy most in life?
Oh, wow. I know it sounds corny, but I feel joyful every day. Despite what's going on in the world, I do find little things to be joyful, whether it's conversations with girlfriends that I've known since elementary school, where I'm now even caring for my dad. While that's certainly exhausting on some levels, I'm getting a closeness and a tenderness with him that I didn't have. And I'm glad
Mm,
during these last years of his life at 96 that I can really provide that for him and then I have the flexibility with my schedule. I mean, my father lives in a different city, so I pretty much have
mm,
relocated here. My staff is taking care of things back at home, which brings me joy that I've set up a structure where my business can still operate, even though
right.
I'm not there full time. That
Mm,
brings me joy. And I think once again, as a Buddhist, I work really hard to find joy even in the sufferings that's happening in the world and in life is that there's still something to be grateful for. I always write down in my gratitude journal every day something I'm grateful for. Don't don't get me wrong. I'm not like a Pollyanna. Doesn't mean I don't have sad moments. Okay, I want you to think I'm
got
like
you.
that, but I know it's a choice. Choosing hope is a choice, right?
Hmm.
Choosing to smile is a choice, and I choose that. Earlier in my life, I was always much more pessimistic. I mean, I was more
Mm,
pessimistic in my 20s than I am now. Even though in my
really?
20s, you had more hopefully to look forward to, right? Your whole future was ahead of you. You were more energetic. Now I don't have the same energy. My lifespan is shorter, but maybe that's how you appreciate things a little bit more as you get older. But I think for me, I also have more of an inner transformation of working
Mm,
harder to find joy, to find people, good people. I don't really have toxic people in my life. There's
mm,
toxic people in the world, but in my inner life, I've gotten rid of toxic people. They
mm.
just
It's
don't come
good.
around or let them go. Well, that helps a lot. And
Yeah.
just learning to set boundaries so that
Mm,
those toxic people can only come but so far anyway. Sometimes I have
right.
some toxic customers, but fortunately, I have my own business. I can even choose how I'm going to deal with them.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just don't want the business.
Right.
It's not worth it. That's why a lot of women love being an entrepreneur. You have to deal with some of the toxic stuff that
Got it.
happens in a workplace and the
Yeah.
judgments, things like that. Let's think,
Mm.
is there anything else I want to add about being child free? What I would want to tell my younger self? I think I would want my younger self to know that you can be content with yourself. I think sometimes there's a tendency to look for love outside of ourselves. And the reason I
Mhm.
mention this, I told you I was in the Big Sister program, and my little sister was probably going to be an unwed teen mother had I not
Mm.
intervened.
Wow.
Instead, she ended up having a college degree, but she did have a baby before she finished her degree. I think at graduation, she was carrying her baby. And she told me, because I was really personally a little disappointed. I really wanted her to live her life a little bit longer, to have the
Right.
chance to be independent before she was burdened with have the responsibility of a child.
Right.
And she said she just wanted someone to love because her mother had died. She was kind of estranged from other of her family members,
Mhm.
and she wanted someone to love.
Mm.
Later on,
Oh.
she realized how challenging that was,
Oh
right? Because
yeah.
a baby doesn't always give you unconditional love back, particularly as they grow older.
No.
And I just think that sometimes there's that tendency to where we're choosing something outside of ourselves to bring us joy versus working here to bring the joy. And then you'll attract that. And
Yes.
I just think that maybe she could have still had a child, but I think if she'd had a few more years,
Yeah.
things would have been a little bit easier for her. That's just the one
Yeah.
example that I've seen.
I mean, and I've had a friend who said those exact words to me as well. And it was heartbreaking to know that because now I've done the work, you've done the work, that we know that you have to go inside. You have to find, what you want, and your voice is more important than anyone else. And the love has to come from you to yourself, not
Yes.
from anyone else. If you can
Right.
get it from other people, lovely. That's an added bonus. But I do think, yeah, younger folks, it's that messaging. You just have this messaging that, especially younger girls, it's like they want a baby because they just want to be loved, and they think it's this fun thing to have this baby. And it's like, no, it's a lifelong responsibility that can be so overwhelming, but we just don't have that messaging for younger people. But you are obviously someone who will have given her so much more strength to go, okay, I can still do things. I got the college graduate. I can still live my life, which is incredible. But yeah, I totally hear you. That must have been hard to hear, but
Yeah.
sometimes you
I was
can't.
very,
Yeah.
yeah. I was very disappointed. But, once again, she had to live her life. But that's what I wish more younger women knew, that had that messaging, and to give yourself a
Yes.
little bit of time to just learn
Yes.
more about yourself, what you like, before you have to then worry about taking care of somebody else.
That's it.
There's something to be said about traveling. I mean, everyone doesn't want to travel internationally, but there is something about being able to see more than just what your current environment shows you, to see
Right.
more of the world. I think in general, I think people would just be a lot better if they saw
Mm-hmm.
more of other kind of lifestyles. Doesn't mean you have to accept other lifestyles, but at least understanding or being aware or being tolerant of other lifestyles, I think just helps everybody. When you're trying to
Agree.
force someone to be something that they're not, they
Mm,
can't be happy. And so if they're not happy, that's going to put some more negativity out in the world. Everyone is
totally.
happy with what their choices are, and to know that there's different types of choices versus just one way. And I
Mm,
think that's what I love that your message is trying to let us know. Child free is an option. It's
yeah.
not a sad solution for someone who didn't get married
No.
or couldn't have kids. It's like a
No.
lifestyle to choose.
That's it.
Just like when women decided that they wanted to go back and be in the workplace. Once
Mm-hmm.
again, that was considered, why aren't you back at home cooking for your family? Well, because I want to start doing this instead.
Right.
I
We get
think
to do
this is,
this as well. We get to live our lives just as much as anyone else should.
yes,
And
yeah,
especially like you had those examples of your mother and your grandmother who didn't have the same choices. And
yeah,
it is heartbreaking when I think about the women from the past who they had no choice. They had to live the life that they were handed down.
yes,
And that breaks my heart because it's hard to understand how that impacts people. Of course it
yeah.
does. Of
Yeah,
course.
what they could have contributed had they had another choice.
Right.
Now, one
Yeah.
of my grandmothers did end up going back to college at age 40, which was
Wow.
huge in those days.
Yeah.
After all of her kids had gone to college, she went back to
Amazing.
college. And then a lot of people were thinking, why are you going to college at this age? No one's going to hire you. And she ended up being a teacher until she retired. I'm thinking, once again,
Amazing.
those negative. So I think I've always been around some people who had to buck what the images were out there.
Mm,
Being an only child as we were young. My parents
yeah.
moved from the South to California when people were thinking, oh, why do you want to go all the way out there and stuff like that. Now it's very common, but that wasn't then. And with my
Right.
grandmother going back because there was something more that she wanted to fulfill.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, because she had a very strong will and a very supportive husband, she was able to go back to school. But I know that a lot of women may not have been able to make that opportunity. So they miss out on what else they can contribute to society, to their lives in general, had they had the option to do more than just raise kids. And I'm not saying that
Mm,
raising kids is not a noble thing. I want to make sure people, I'm not shameful for having kids.
yeah.
But I'm just saying that sometimes you want to have some additional options or maybe not have as many kids.
That's it.
That's why
That's it.
reproductive rights are so important.
Absolutely. And you've done so much with your life, Judy. Is there anything that you still want to do? Is there any other kind of ideas that you want to fulfill? You're such a
Funny you say
creative.
that. Yes, I do want to be fluent in another language. I want to be able to speak
Ooh.
Spanish fluently. And to do that, I ideally would like to maybe spend a couple of months living in a Spanish speaking country. I don't have the freedom right now to just take off and live
No.
someplace for 3 months. But that's one of the things I'd like to do when that
Fabulous.
opportunity presents. Yes.
Oh,
Live for
that's
3 months.
wonderful.
Yeah. Doesn't sound like fun?
We've fallen in love with Spain. I could see that we would want to live here someday. Like we're in the
Wow.
Canary Islands right now, and yeah, I don't know. There's just something about the culture here that we absolutely love. James is learning Spanish right now, so maybe you and him will be
Wow.
able to practice one day.
Yes. Okay. That's great. Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
And
but
just the
that's
fact
fab.
that as long as I'm healthy, I'm glad that you asked that because sometimes people think that A lot of my friends have retired at this age. Once again, another kind of example of choosing different lifestyles.
Right.
They chose to retire. Good for them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not retiring. Good for me. But sometimes
Yes.
both groups want to shame the other. It's, oh, why are you retiring? Why aren't you retired?
It's crazy.
Yeah. But I do feel like I still want to continue just to grow and learn and do new things. I can't imagine myself retiring where I'm just kind of sitting back. And
No.
no shame for people who want to just be with their grandchildren. There's a role for those people. I have a friend, her sister just loves being with her grandkids. She retires, and that brings her the greatest joy. That would drive me crazy. I like the
Same.
idea, as long as I'm healthy, I can do other things.
Yeah.
Travel, learn new language. There's
Mm.
different aspects to my business that I'm adding on to because the market has changed for mannequins. So we're offering more art classes. I love doing
Mm.
things like that. So I
Yes.
see more of that. I'm learning how to use AI more effectively. I know that's a new horizon, but
Yeah.
I just love always continue learning and growing and trying new things. Not to
That's
say that I couldn't do
amazing.
that if I had children. I mean, because sometimes having children help teach you these things, right? Sometimes
Right.
you need younger people to show you how to do these
Mm.
things. But once again, we can do these things on our own if we really want to.
Completely. Absolutely. I mean, you've traveled, I think, is it 4 continents?
Yes.
Yeah. So, do you have a favorite place that you've loved to see in the world?
Well, I love Italy. I mean, who doesn't love
Oh,
Italy, right? You know,
the
the
food. Oh.
food, the food, the
Oh,
shopping, the history. But
right.
my heart is more Mediterranean countries like
Yeah.
Spain. I spent a lot
Mm.
of time in South America. I probably could
Mm.
see myself living in Mexico or
Oh,
Panama, something like
yes.
that. I'm definitely,
Yes.
as much as I love Italy, I'm leaning towards Spanish speaking culture because I love the
Right.
culture and because I know a little bit of the language kind of thing.
Got you.
But I've always wanted to go to Morocco. That's on my list too, as a place to be able
Well,
to travel. Have you been there with your travels?
James and I actually we had our honeymoon in Morocco, so
Oh, we'll
we
have to
did.
have an offline conversation about that then.
It's a wonderful place. Yeah, again, amazing food, amazing culture. But James got food poisoning while we were there. Not the best. He was warned, don't eat the street food, especially not
Uh,
the salad, because they
oh,
will wash it in water that
yeah,
might not be
yeah.
sterilized. So he did not listen, and he was, punished. But but we had a
That,
fabulous
yes.
time anyway.
Yeah, okay. Funny how
Um,
we both start off with the food. Italy, food,
Oh yeah,
Morocco,
no.
food. Yes,
Oh
yes.
god, that's how we drive our van basically directed towards okay, where's the next food place that we want to check out or coffee shop where we want to go to. And yeah, Italy is on the list because we've barely explored there, and I just think yeah, when we have been passing through, the food that we had was so incredible that I was like, yeah, we got to go back
Yeah,
there.
exactly. Well, let me ask you a quick question though. What
Yeah.
have you learned from doing these podcasts and interviewing women who are child free? Especially you're interviewing older women, I'm understanding, correct?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. From the interviews with the older women, that they really don't have regrets, that they really have loved their life and they've been able to create a life that is theirs. They were handed scripts of like, you should do this, but they have went, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to actually follow my heart. And they've been able to create a very unique life, whether that is creative, whether that is building community around them. So I think it showed me that actually there are no rules. You can create whatever life you want. You can have a small, quiet, peaceful life. You can have a big, adventurous life of travel. So when you don't have kids, it's like the rules kind of disintegrate and you get to be
Hmm.
like, okay, because you don't have to, maybe you don't have to stay in one place for 10, 15 years for
Yes.
school. You don't have to be near your parents, maybe because they're offering a large support to look after kids while you go to work.
Yes.
So I think that's just been the biggest inspiration is that they have built such unique and different lives and we really need to see that kind of represented and that
Hmm.
they for all women that I speak to in this project they bust all of these child-free myths, the myths of like that you are selfish, that you are immature, that you would change your mind, all of these negative really
That you have
myths
cats. No
that you
shame,
have.
people have cats. Yeah.
There's definitely lots of pets in the community, but yeah, I mean that idea as well, whenever that goes out there, all the child free folks are like, actually that sounds amazing, I do want to live by myself and have lots of animals, and it's, you think this is a thing that shames me, I actually, it's because when you look at the alternatives, you're like, oh yeah, I might have to be with a husband who doesn't treat me right, or in a relationship that is wrong for me, or I'll be solo and I will just have whatever. Maybe I do want animals. Maybe I want plants, whatever it is. And
Uh,
I think that's the thing. Society thinks they're shaming us. And I'm like, actually, we're embracing it. We're like,
yeah,
keep throwing these insults at us, because actually it's like the older that we get as well, the stronger that we get. Because I
yeah,
remember, in my 20s, I would be a lot more like, oh God, people think I hate children, or people think this and they think that. And then I would try and make other people comfortable instead of making myself comfortable. So
comfortable. Yes,
now as we age, I'm like, I think you're the same. It's like you just let go of all of that kind of crap,
right.
and
Exactly.
you're like, you know
Yeah,
what? I don't need to make everyone else
yeah,
feel good. Actually, what would make me feel
yeah.
good? And that's what I
Now,
love
you
about the
interviewed
women.
women who are child free and who are married.
Yes, yeah, but all kinds. Folks who are married, solo, dating, and yeah, dating can be it's a complicated one, because if you're solo and you want to meet someone, yes, there's a lot of men out there who they think they need to say, I want kids, because that's what they think a lot of women are wanting. I met James and we've been together nearly 25 years. I know lots of friends. They've been with child-free men. So they are out there. It's just maybe you have to do a bit more digging to find them. But then I talk to women who are so happy by themselves. They love their life. They're like, you know what? I actually don't need another person in my life, because it's so rich with relationships and friendships and community and hobbies and my career. And I'm like,
Yeah,
yeah. And that's what I tell James, is like, you know what? If something happens to James, I'm just going to be solo, because I feel like I got a unicorn with James. So
you
I'm
did.
never going to get it twice. So,
Yes, yeah. You
um,
never know. Like I'm sure that my husband would have wanted to have kids because we once again men tend to think they have to have kids. They want something
right.
carry their name, things of that,
Yes.
whatever.
Oh
So
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I was fortunate I didn't get that pressure for him. I was just wondering sometimes if you meet women who don't want to have children and they get partner and the husband has to
Oh
have children,
yeah. Oh
how
yeah.
that
That's
happens.
they
Now it's different
yeah,
now with me getting married late in life. I feel more like Kamala Harris. If I
right.
remarry or repartner, there's no pressure to have kids, and he may have
Right.
kids, and I
Yes.
would be okay with that because then I'd have to be bothered with raising the kids. But I
It's
always
a
loved the artist Georgia O'Keeffe,
oh
who,
yeah.
we always seem to allow women who are artists to be a little on the eccentric side, and
Totally.
sometimes it's okay for them not to have kids. But it seems like
Mm,
she had like younger lovers as she got older,
right.
which I
Oh no,
like
right.
that. Yes.
I've spoken to Cindy Gallop, as a woman who she's very
Oh,
upfront.
yes, I know
Right.
her. I know of
Oh,
her. Yeah. Yes.
so she is
I
someone who
love
is
Cindy.
like, I sleep with younger men. I love having sex. I'm not married. I don't have kids. I love my life. And like, people's minds are blown that an older woman, she loves sex. She loves younger men. It's like, yes, yes,
She's such a
we
great role
are.
model.
Oh,
I
she
love
is.
her. Yes.
And
Yeah.
speaking about step parents, I spoke to a woman who was also in her 60s last week, and she has a partner who also has two older children. And she was saying, I kind of have the best of both worlds, because they're teenagers, they live their lives. I
Uh,
don't really need to be any kind of mother figure, but I can be their friend, and
yes.
I enjoy that
Mentor.
role. Yeah.
Yes.
And I don't have to deal too much with maybe the younger years, which would have been quite difficult. So I think what I definitely see from speaking to so many people is that there is a lot of nuance. There is no one way to be child
Yeah.
free. You could be like,
Yes.
you could have never wanted kids, and then maybe you could have maybe you do change. We all change, we all grow. Mostly I just love how badass all of the women that I speak to are. That seriously, they are the best people I've ever met and spoken to. There's something about, especially I think, women who choose this path, because it's like it takes a lot of guts and a lot of courage to say, I'm going to live my life for myself. I'm going to choose myself first and foremost, and then create a life that is around me. That's not selfish. That's beautiful. And I think I just love meeting women like yourself, Judy,
And,
who just embody that.
and you're doing such a great job. It's that you're a version of that Humans of New York, only you're putting
Oh,
a face to women who are child free. And I hope that you have
thank
just
you.
great success in
Thank
letting this
you.
go around the world for people to see this. And I see
Thank
that you
you.
also are embracing gray, which
Oh,
is
yes, absolutely.
you
Oh,
say
God.
that with such gusto, but that's another thing too that People are
Totally.
slow to embrace. It became more popular during 2020 when people couldn't go and get their hair colored.
Mm,
Maybe this is not so bad, but I think
right.
that's another kind of horizon that why we put, especially on women, we're not
Hmm.
considered silver foxes, but men are. So you're doing two things at once right here, where you're talking about child free and embracing gray, which I love.
Oh, thank you. I
Uh,
mean, yeah, aging as a woman in the world that we live in, it's hard because the world tells you you need to look a certain way. You need to be ageless.
yeah.
And this is another side of the work that I do. You know, I photograph older women because I want the world to understand that we don't need to remove our wrinkles. We don't need to dye our hair. We don't need to shave our legs. We don't need to do any of those things that the world tells us because they want what? A prepubescent girl? Like I'm
Yes.
not changing myself. I'm not changing myself
Yes.
for that
Was also a way to
graft.
sell products too.
Oh, that I was just watching a video about how we now think that we all have to shave because Gillette wanted to get the other. They brought out a men's razor and it did fabulously. This was back in the 60s or 70s,
Um,
and then they were like, "Oh, but half of the market we need to get women." So then they started putting out adverts that would talk about how disgusting body hair was and how unhygienic
wow.
it was, and then women
Wow.
started to think, oh, I need to now shave my hair. So we now shave because of capitalism and companies
Yeah.
selling products to us. And that makes me even more resistant to it. So I'm like, okay, I'm not doing this
Yes.
if, you know,
Yes.
but that takes a lot of you know, you've got to kind of have your eyes opened to that. And I think when you see, like yourself, you see women who are like going against that grain of you need to look a certain way, it just makes you go, you know what, I can do this as well. And the gray hair, it's so much more low maintenance. I'm like, oh God, never again would I dye my hair.
But once again, they're not selling you products if you're going natural with your own hair. So
Right.
a
That's it.
combination of both capitalism as well as just the pressure for a woman to be eternally youthful is,
Right.
even though that is just so wrong.
It
For
is.
lack of a better
It's
word, it's
sad,
just so
isn't it?
wrong, you know.
Did you
And
ever did you ever feel that kind of I'm getting more invisible as I get older as a woman in society? I am less seen.
well, definitely now that I moved back to Los Angeles where my father is, LA being
Right.
the entertainment capital of the world, there is so much more pressure here to be a certain
Mm,
size and to
yep.
look wrinkle free. And the Bay Area, I didn't feel that, which is why I enjoyed living in the Bay Area. I mean, I'm sure there's always a segment of society that's there, but they say cities like LA, New York, and Miami are very hard to be
Right.
an aging woman.
Hmm.
So, because I have roots someplace else, it allows me to not feel so pressured when I
Yep.
come here to visit. But I'm aware when I look around, it's like,
I
wow,
bet.
you
I
know,
bet. Oh, in
yeah. And I
LA?
don't,
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
and I don't know if I had stayed here, if I would have been able to withstand it. I'm glad that I allowed
Yeah.
myself to be uprooted and go someplace else that then really nurtured me in a way that LA didn't.
Mm,
Some women can do it here, but I couldn't,
yeah.
you
Yeah,
know.
no, it must be very difficult. I mean, that's it. It's like I think when you're around that environment of the extreme pressure, and obviously when all other women around you might be succumbing to that pressure, then you have to be even stronger. You have to be even more
Yes,
assured and
right.
confident in yourself. And that takes a lot. You know,
That's a
I have
lot.
friends in LA
Yeah.
as well, and it's really tough.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think in Europe, you guys are much more embracing of older women than we are
Def
in the States. Uh,
yes, definitely. Why do you think that is then?
I don't know.
I
I
wonder
don't know.
whether, I mean,
That's a whole,
because when the only thing that kind of comes to mind is when you look at like politics and you look at people in the media, the women look quite similar. They all long hair, blondes. A lot of them are white, big lips. There's a stereotype of what a woman.
yes,
They've even coined like the Trump women. It's like
uh,
they just all look very similar.
same.
But I do, yeah, maybe we know this living in Germany for 12 years, like women don't really wear makeup. And I guess there's just something maybe a little bit more, that we don't have that kind of culture. I think there's an advertising capitalist culture in America that I think
Yes,
is it's on your adverts, it's in your,
yeah.
you know, your news readers. Everywhere you look, there's a pressure for women
They're
to look a
spending the
certain
money to,
way.
yes, to make you feel bad about what you
Yes.
have.
And I
Well, they
think
also say in
because, yeah,
England, because you guys have had women monarchs who aged in place,
right,
that
right.
they also were used to seeing older women. I think
Yes,
sometimes the Latin cultures, they really respect older people, like their grandparents. So
true.
there's a certain respect for that. And I think
Very true.
places like LA, and the US being a newer country, they tend
Yeah.
to just want to embrace everything that's new,
Hmm.
whether it's new fashions, new buildings. We don't have buildings that are 2,000 years old.
Right.
So I think part of it, you said, is the culture combined with the capitalism wanting to advertise and put that in your face. And if they're
Yeah.
making money on it, they're going to continue to churn that out.
That's
Over
it.
there, where there's maybe a little bit more socialism, there's less of an
Yes.
effort to put that out there.
Yes.
But
That's it.
I don't know. But yeah, it
Yeah.
is harder to withstand that when you're constantly being bombarded with
Mm.
it.
Oh, but I
And
mean, you look gorgeous, Judy. Your hair's fabulous. Like I love the outfit. I mean, so yeah. But I imagine, yes, in LA, you probably will stand out as someone who is you're not taking any shit. So
oh, yeah, I
you're
rarely
not
see anybody with gray hair in Los Angeles. I do
crazy,
in the Bay Area, but I
right?
don't see that many down. And there are
Uh,
plenty. I'm talking about people in my age group, and
right.
I don't see that.
It makes me sad. It makes me really sad.
Yeah,
It's like we don't need to change ourselves to be accepted. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough. But yes, we're not succumbing to it. That's
yeah, yeah,
something.
yeah. Well, once
So
again,
then,
I love what
yeah.
you're doing. I love being a
Oh,
part of
thanks,
this. I love
Judy.
to be able to share. If anyone wants to reach out to me, not to troll me, don't come and say, "Oh, I don't like what you said about da 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 da." If you don't agree,
I
that's
That's
fine.
not happening.
Okay, but you know how
No,
there's the internet now. Everyone has an
I
opinion,
know.
and so
No,
things can be taken out of context. And I'm not trying to, like I said, put down
no.
anybody's lifestyle choice. I just want to say let's be more tolerant of other lifestyle choices, and this one is mine.